Hello and welcome again to the Writer Review. This is Eric Carrot Writer, and this week we're going to be taking a look back at the 2013 action thriller movie titled The Bourne Legacy. Now, The Bourne Legacy runs for 2 hours and 15 minutes long. It is directed by Tony Gilroy. The script was written by Tony and Dan Gilroy. The story was by Tony Gilroy. It is based off of the novel of the Jason Bourne series by Robert Ludlum. It is produced by Frank Marshall, Patrick Crowley, Jeffrey Weiner, and Ben Smith. It is composed by James Newton Howard, the cinematography by Robert Elswit, and it was edited by John Gilroy. And the stars of the movie are Jeremy Renner, Rachel Weisz, Edward Norton, Stacey Keach, Dennis Boutsikaris, Oscar Isaac, Joan Allen, Albert Finney, David Strathairn, Scott Glenn, Donna Murphy, Michael Chernus, Corey Stoll, Zeljko, Ivanek, Shane Jacobson, Elizabeth Marvel, John Douglas Thompson, Louis Ozawa Changchien, David Wilson Barnes, Michael Berresse, John Arcilla, Lou Veloso, and Karen Pittman. Okay, so The Bourne Legacy is supposedly supposed to be a rightfully named title. But this is actually a Bourne movie without Bourne. Maybe it should be called The Cross Supremacy, because this movie does not have Jason Bourne in it. He's mentioned. The CIA operatives who are working to take down Jason Bourne in the past, like Treadstone, Outcome, Blackbriar, and Larks 3 are all featured there. There is, of course, Joan Allen's name got mentioned, Pamela Landy, and she does make an appearance in this movie. So it feels kind of like a Bourne movie. It's got the chase scenes and the action scenes and the fight scenes that make you feel like it's a Bourne movie. It's got the man who has written the 3 Bourne movies, Tony Gilroy, featured in it. But there's just no Matt Damon in this movie, let alone Jason Bourne. Now, Matt Damon was asked if he would like to be in this 4th installment, but since Paul Greengrass rejected, Matt Damon did the same. So director Tony Gilroy, who has written the 3 Bourne movies before that, Identity, Supremacy, and Ultimatum, well, I guess he had to go around looking for another actor to take over as the leading assassin the CIA is after. Another one. Another super spy, which the CIA is trying to take down. So Jeremy Renner becomes the latest protagonist, who goes by the name of Aaron Cross. Now, when I think of the term legacy, I would assume there would be like that the main protagonist in this movie would likely pass the torch to another person, and they will take the place of their predecessor in these dangerous missions against the corruption within the CIA organization and their diabolical programs. On the one hand, the main protagonist, Aaron Cross, played by Jeremy Renner, is on the run from the CIA and its program, namely Outcome, who are in the process of making genetically modified pills that enhance their spies' strengths and smarts. The problem with Aaron Cross, then compared to Jason Bourne, is that Jason Bourne is still, in my opinion, a far superior assassin than Aaron Cross, and a much more effective character than Aaron Cross. Mainly because I've always was led to believe that Jason Bourne was just a naturally born, get it, an organically professional who fought and didn't have to rely on any kind of genetic modifications to beat his adversaries. Whereas Aaron Cross, taking these pills is practically do or die. He can't survive the spy organization takedowns without the pills. Without the pills, he's practically a nobody, an inferior, lacking in strength and lacking in intelligence. Especially in intelligence. Yeah, okay, so the guy was a military soldier prior to becoming a CIA target. But he only got in by default. He was 12 points short of the intellectual ladder to actually be eligible to be in the military. But somebody just boosted him up. Boosted up his IQ, and that's how he practically got in. I mean, when he isn't taking his pills, he could come across as being, well, quite the shadow of himself, lacking in the strengths and especially lacking in intelligence. I don't know about his cognitive skills, whether they were in place, but I really kind of doubt it. I mean, he didn't even know what state he was in. So maybe he actually does become organically stupid without these pills. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I say pills? I meant genetically modified amalgamations. Excuse me. Yeah. But the problem with this movie is that there really is no legacy because Cross's mission is happening around the same time frame as the events happening in the Bourne Ultimatum. Bourne is not really particularly giving up his position and passing it over to Cross, which makes the title very misleading. Bourne is pretty much on a mission of his own. And this is all happening during the Bourne Ultimatum. Cross is practically in a mission on his own. There is no pass the torch. There is no Matt Damon saying, "You're on your own, buddy. Good luck. You're gonna need it." Why even call it a Bourne film where Jason Bourne never even shows up? Not even for a small cameo appearance. He is mentioned by name, and all the other bigwig corporate sycophants who work for the CIA are also there too. But comparing the Bourne Legacy to the other three Bourne movies is like comparing apples to oranges. Bourne was a natural, self-made individual who went through training, fighting skills, and weaponry, while always coming up with cerebral thinking when it comes to survival. Cross has to depend on these medical things to really get his shit going. Oh, he doesn't call them pills, he calls them chems. And he has to depend on this medication to survive in this deadly jungle of chases and fights. But the sad part is that instead of following a similar formula that was effective in the Bourne franchise, they implement events from the Bourne Ultimatum in small fragments that sadly stick out like a sore thumb. They try to break away from that formula and take it away from a franchise focused primarily on a story where the atmosphere is centered around post 9/11 government paranoia. I mean, the first opening scenes are pretty much like set in the Alaskan tundra where Aaron is showing, just how effective he is as a fighter by wrestling wolves. And how he has to depend on these chems just to survive. Because if he doesn't, the CIA is going to go after him and he's going to be pretty much dead meat. The film takes a turn for the better when it tries to conceal its delivery by making us think we are not watching a Bourne movie. Like I said, why the fuck did they actually call this movie a Bourne movie when it really shouldn't? Just because all the events that was transpiring during the Bourne Ultimatums there doesn't mean that it is a fucking Bourne movie. It felt more like a spin-off than it did feel like a pass the torch type of thing. With a franchise that concentrated on fighting assassins, running from them, and running while taking them down, Tony Gilroy, who has wrote all the scripts from the other Bourne movies, including this one, along with his brother Dan, has taken over the director's chair from Paul Greengrass and decided to turn his attentions towards creating a plot leaning towards the convoluted and the implausible. The rather confusing exposition gets smoothly revealed by an uptight CIA undercover named Colonel Eric Byer, played by Edward Norton. He sees Bourne going rogue and fears he might be under the knife from one of his own experimental subjects. Yeah, so this movie has practically turned almost like a little bit of sci-fi going into it. Not complete, with all these pills and needles that supposedly gives you superpowers. But Byer, feeling the fear of being under the knife, he is going to go through all means necessary to shut down Outcome and have all of those involved in the program terminated. And he will go through whatever means necessary. Even if it means to practically take one of the researchers in the medical pharmaceutical labs and blast everyone's head off. It needs to shut down, and it needs to shut down now. That's what Byer's practically saying. All of these organizations need to be terminated. Treadstone, Blackbriar, Outcome, Larks. They all need to be eradicated. Otherwise, he's just going to go down like Conklin. He's going to go down like Abbott. And he's probably going to go down like Landy if he doesn't, if this operation keeps, if these organizations keep operating. Byer is thus destined to shut down Outcome and have all these individuals involved in the program terminated. This leads to Cross on the run in search of these medical enhancements in order to protect his body and mind from wearing out. He wants to keep these organizations running. Or he doesn't care about the organizations. All he cares about is these fucking pills. Otherwise, he's just going to lose his mind and he's going to lose his powers. These things give him like superpowers. They might as well make this a fucking superhero movie without the cape and the cheesy costumes. His quest for survival is with the assistance from the lone survival in the whole ordeal. Her name is Dr. Marta Shearing, played by Rachel Weisz, who was saved from Cross after assassins for hire break into her home. Oh, she also survived a massive homicide led by one of her researchers who decides to get up and blast everyone's head off. She also survives this. Marta is pretty much, even though she's not organically trained as an assassin or necessarily trained as a fighter, she seems to have some pretty swift, clever instincts in surviving. Sure, most of it consists of hiding and just narrowly escaping life and limb, but she is kind of effective in that. And we can kind of understand. Marta Shearing is kind of like a pharmaceutical researcher whose mission is basically just to, see the effects of each of the pills that are taken to see if there's any kind of enhancement in a person's strength and mind, and to see if there's any effects that go with it. But the main location to where all the pills and all the stuff that comes within them, well, it's basically located in a faraway place from America. The duo have to travel to the Philippines to a drug factory in which Cross is seeking for some kind of a viral concoction that will no longer make him dependable of these chems. So while the CIA is trying to, shut down and get rid of all these pills that is being implemented into these spies, the Philippines actually have a drug factory in Manila where they can have some kind of a viral concoction that will no longer make him need to take any more of the chems, and that he will be forever a naturally, organically trained assassin, and he will no longer have to take the pills ever again. Especially that he won't revert to going back to being stupid. The problem I think about this movie that I really did not understand was that the main big bad in this movie doesn't really have a particular name. He was just one person who also seemed to have been dependent on these chems and has turned himself into a mean, lean fighting machine to the same effect as Cross. And of course, they chase their way throughout the streets of of the ramshackled and decrepit city of Manila. I'm not saying all of Manila is impoverished and condemned, but hey, this is what you call third world stereotyping, folks. But yes, they go through the bustling city of Manila, leading to a car chase, leading into a motorcycle chase, fighting scenes, foot chases, But it's all very anticlimactic And we don't even know the origins of who this mysterious assassin is chasing after Aaron and Marta. That's the thing that kind of is a letdown. And even though the film tends to run at a pace equivalent like a turtle's pace, this movie is 2 hours and 15 minutes long. That's longer than any of the other Bourne movies. There are a few sequences that do pay off in the end, albeit the overly long length of the movie. For one thing, if you're not a fan of the shaky cam made by Greengrass in the previous two Bourne movies, which were of course Supremacy and Ultimatum, you might get some moment of relief as scenes where Cross is in Alaska for training, they're pretty much fleshed out brilliantly. The fight scenes may not be approved amongst the purists of the Bourne movies, but the backbone of the movie comes from Rachel Weisz, who fortunately is quite on a lot. And I actually practically may have liked her character more than I could say for Aaron Cross. Though she is in fear a lot, she does balance these emotions by remaining tough and also quite resourceful in survival instincts, which is quite a relief, being that the movie is saturated with top government jargon and Renner's stoic presence. In fact, I thought she actually turned in the best performance in this movie. Unfortunately, Gilroy decides to end the movie with an endless anticlimactic motorcycle chase battling a supercharged assassin played by Louis Ozawa Changchien, who was aided into the fold for our hero to combat with. They needed somebody to take to the climactic battle scene ending fight. But he just sort of just came out of nowhere. We don't know who the fuck he is. We don't know where the hell he came out of. He just appeared out of nowhere and decides to just go after Aaron and Marta without any reason or motive, except that he's just a supercharged badass assassin. And there's no fucking clue who he is. He doesn't have a name. It's just some guy they picked up from the streets and say, "Go on, we'll pay you a lot of money just to chase around Aaron and Marta. You might even get Jeremy Renner and Rachel Weisz's autograph in the end. They'll collect a nice big heavy payoff. But we don't know who he is. He doesn't even have a name. Sure, it might have some levels of fast-paced action, but it just deters from the agenda of the story. And in the end, we don't really necessarily see a sequel. We see a movie that's milking a popular franchise as an excuse to launch more sequels in the future. Yeah, Matt Damon does come back a few years later for the movie simply called Jason Bourne. And maybe we might see a crossover. Get it? Cross, because his name is Aaron Cross. Oh, I'm so funny. But no, all kidding aside, between Jason Bourne and Aaron Cross, we might see something like that. I think there's a rumors of that, and it would be great that if Matt Damon and Jeremy Renner do come back for it. It's a possibility. But until then, can't really highly recommend this movie. There's no real dull moment in there. The plot line moves rather smoothly, but I just think the movie goes on too long, especially those scenes in the Alaskan climax, the out of nowhere multiple homicide, suicide with the research lab, and the whole chase scene in the Philippines really does not have a complete payoff because we don't know who the fuck is after Aaron and Marta. So I can't really recommend this movie too much. But, if you're an action junkie and you like these kind of stuff, I guess there's some things that you can enjoy about this movie. But until then, if I was to give this movie a scale out of 10, I would have to give the Bourne Legacy from 2013 a 6. So I guess this ends my writer review. Thank you all for listening in. If you wish to subscribe to my YouTube channel, please feel free to do so. If you wish to leave a comment, go right ahead. But just remember the 3 simple rules: be kind, be courteous, and please refrain from any rude comments. And I'll be back again with another movie review. So until next time, this is Eric Karate Writer saying, keep watching those movies, and I'll see you around. Goodbye.